We have a crisis in the world, tremendous crisis, and also crisis in our consciousness, in us. I see the urgency of change, radical revolution, mutation in the mind. I see it. It is necessary. There is complete quietness of the mind, and that which is silent has vast space. Only then that which is nameless comes into being.
This is Urgency of Change, the Krishnamurti podcast. We have divided time into yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and hence we have invented the process of gradual achievement for freeing ourselves. Hello and welcome to episode 255 of Urgency of Change. Each episode of the Krishnamurti podcast is based on a significant theme of his talks. Extracts have been carefully selected to represent Krishnamurti's different approaches to these universal and timeless topics. This episode's theme is tomorrow. Upcoming themes are knowing, Bliss, Ecstasy and Benediction, and mechanical living. This is a podcast from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. Please visit the official YouTube channel for hundreds of full-length video and audio recordings of Krishnamurti's talks and discussions. In addition, the Foundation's own channel features a large collection of carefully selected clips. You can also find our regular Krishnamurti quotes and videos on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review or rating on your podcast app. This episode on tomorrow has 3 sections. This first extract is from Krishnamurti's 5th talk in New Delhi 1964 and is titled Our Invented Tomorrow.
If we are going this evening to resolve our problems, and it is possible to resolve our problems totally, as we will go into it this evening. But to resolve them, you must leave your particular corner which you have so diligently cultivated, and look at the problem as a whole. And you cannot look at the problem as a whole if you do not understand the whole question of time. You know, time, there is only one time, by the watch. There is no other time. There is actually no tomorrow except that the thought has created tomorrow. But actually, there is no tomorrow. Please be patient. I'm going to it. It requires a great deal of inquiry. Not mere saying, what nonsense are you talking about? There is tomorrow. I have to go to the office. I have to have money to buy this and do that. I have to go to a certain place tomorrow. Of course there is tomorrow. Again, chronologically. Again, as tomorrow, as 24 hours, by the watch. But is there any other time? And we have made time, not the chronological time, but a psychological time as a means of resolving our problems. I will resolve my problem tomorrow. I will investigate the problem. I will find out the cause. I will do this and I will do that. So, thought has invented the time which is unreal. And that's one of our difficulties. This requires a great deal of inquiry, not accepting or denying. Because all our education, all our ways of thinking, the creation of an utopia, which is to sacrifice the present for the future, the development of character, and the idea I will be, I will succeed, I will gain, I will become, are all within the field of time which thought has created. What thought has created is not real. There is only one time, that is the time by the watch. So, why does the mind create this time of the future, tomorrow, the next moment? Why do you say that you will do something tomorrow? Why do you say that I will give up smoking? The will, that is, I will do something, which is in time, future, as thought out by the mind. When you say, I will do, I will try, when you say, in the meantime I must, all those indicate that you are dealing with an artificial time, but not with chronological time. So, the mind invents time first as a postponement. Please listen to this. As a means of postponing the action. And all our education is geared to the future. Because we are so dissatisfied with the present. We don't understand the present. The present is too complex. The present demands that you give your total attention to everything that you do, to all the thoughts, to all the feelings, the care of everything that you do, the care of your word, the care of your gesture, how you talk, how you look. That demands tremendous energy. That demands great attention. But if you say, I will be non-violent in some other day as an ideal, which you practice in this country, unfortunately, everlastingly talking about non-violence, when in your heart you're violent. So you invent this. You invent this as an idea, as a postponement, as an ideal, and in the meantime, you are doing what you want to do. You are violent, you are vicious, you are angry, jealous, envious. But eventually, you will get over it. So, the mind has invented a time as gradualness. Gradually I will do that. I am talking psychologically, not as factually. That is, I have to learn a language. I can't learn it immediately. I need time. I need several days, perhaps several months. That is, by the watch. But that is quite a different time from the time which I say to myself, I will do this, I will become this, I will develop a character, I will resist, I will suppress, I will do this. So the future is, listen to this, is in the word, not in the active present as the verb itself is. Probably most of you have not thought about this at all. For some probably it'll be strange and fantastical and unreal and something that cannot be done, therefore it becomes an ideal, a theory. But if one realizes that there is no psychological tomorrow, no tomorrow, that the thought will never say, I will. I will be kind, I will be generous, I will be more, I will be less corrupt. When the mind sees clearly this whole question of time as gradation, as gradual, as a means of gradual progress, then it becomes totally unreal. Then you are faced only with the actual chronological time, and there is no other time. Then your whole action is different. Isn't it? If the mind realizes that there is no tomorrow but an invented tomorrow, and you have the many problems that you think you will solve by investigating, by postponing, by asking somebody what to do about them, by slow process of analysis, which are all the process of time. And if you realize there is no time except the chronological time, then you are faced with solving the problem immediately, not postponing it. So, when you have a problem of hunger or a problem of lust, those are very demanding problems. You don't say, I will eat tomorrow. I will satisfy my sexual appetite another day. Because they are very urgent. They demand immediate action. But we human beings have invented this time as a means of postponing, as a means of not coming directly into contact with the problem, as a means of evasion. Look at yourself. Please, again let me repeat. To learn, you must have a mind that is curious, a mind that demands questions, critical, doesn't accept, nor deny. It is an inquiring mind, a mind that has no authority, neither the authority of the government or of Moscow or of any country in the world or of your own guru. It is learning, inquiring, searching, asking. And that's the only way you learn. And you learn only when you deny everything and begin. And for most of us, that's very difficult. We rather live in the muddy, thoughtless, repetitive world, creating many problems and dying with these problems. So, unless one understands deeply the question of time, that is, to live so completely in the present that the mind does not think about the future, because there is no future except the mind invents it. Now, to live so completely in the present is one of the most difficult things. It is not accepting the present and just living from day to day in a sloppy, ineffectual, emotional, a state which doesn't regard the future or is not concerned with what's going to happen. That's what we are, most people, because out of their despair, out of their misery, try to push all that away and just live from day to day. That's not living in the present. To live in the present implies that the mind is not thinking of tomorrow at all, because it has understood the whole process of time. And you cannot live in the present, which demands tremendous energy, great attention, if your mind is conditioned as a Hindu, as a Sikh, or a Muslim, or God knows all the stupid divisions that man has made. So one has to be free of that, to live so ardently, so completely in the present. Then time has quite a different significance. Time is death. Because we are going to talk about death in relation to time. And we're going to talk about death in relation to love. But if you do not understand this whole process of time, you will not come into contact and therefore understand the whole problem of death. And if you don't understand this extraordinary thing called death, you won't understand what love is. So, time, death, and love are interrelated. Naturally, one has not the time to go in detail over this question of time. If you had no time as tomorrow, then you would be confronted with a problem, your particular problem. You are intimately in contact with that problem. There is no question of postponing that problem. You have no time for analysis. It must be solved immediately. And it is possible to solve immediately. Any problem. If the mind is not involved in time. Look, there is a gentleman over there who is wiggling his leg. And he's unaware of it. And if you say, look, watch what you're doing, he'll stop it for the moment. Because his attention is drawn to that, and at that moment he's there completely. But a few minutes later, he'll forget it and begin again, the nervous reaction. Which is, he has not understood the habit. Habit as time. So, time is the product of thought. Time is the result of our desire to do things gradually, psychologically, inwardly, to bring about a change, a transformation gradually, because we are frightened. We are frightened to do something immediately, because we don't know what the future is going to be. If we do certain things, you don't know what will happen. Therefore, we want to take everything into consideration, the future, the yesterday, the tomorrow, and everything. And in the meantime, the problems multiply. Whereas, if you had no tomorrow at all, please listen to this. If you had no tomorrow at all, that is, the memory which responds as thought, and you have understood the whole structure of memory, then you will see that time is a hindrance to immediate action.
The second extract is from the second talk at Brockwood Park in 1984 and is titled, Is There Security Tomorrow?
The brain can only function excellently at its highest capacity and energy when it is completely secure. When it is not living or holding on to some illusions, some concepts, beliefs, faith, some fantastic ideas, or the ideals of Marx and Lenin and so on, or our own democratic ideals and holding on to them. We're talking about time and what relationship has time to security. Time being tomorrow. Time being the 1,000 tomorrows following each other. Is there security in that tomorrow? We understand each other. The speaker is asking a question whether there is security in the pursuit of tomorrow, in the pursuit of the future, which is time. Right? Please, we are talking things over together. I'm not talking to myself. And this is important to understand if we want to go into ourselves and understand our whole, what we call the psyche, which is our being. And to understand that very deeply, one must go into this question of security. We seek security in the family, in the community, in a commune, or in a particular sect, whether it be the sect of Catholicism, or Protestantism, and so on, or Hindus, and so on. Is there security in time? You understand me? Is there security in the future? And what is the future? The future is what we are now. What one is now, with all the turmoil, anxiety, depression, violence, self-centered activity, sorrow, affection, and the pain of separation and the fear of death is what is now, what we are now. That's our psyche, that's our consciousness, that's our being. And has that, which is the result of vast experiences, knowledge of that which we have accumulated during thousands and thousands of years. That's what we are now. The tradition, our conditioning, both linguistically and, which is another matter. We won't go into the question whether the brain can be conditioned linguistically. Are you interested in all this? Sunday morning. This is not a sermon. If you are really interested in your own life, not in what the speaker is talking about, if one is interested to understand this enormous, complex society in which we live, with all the immorality, with all the corruption, and the great sorrow every society brings to every human being, and that society which we have created, that society is not different from us. We have created through our greed, through our violence, through our aggression, through our competitiveness, and so on. We have made it. And what we are caught in that which we have made. So we are fighting not only society externally, trying to adjust ourselves to it, and also rejecting it, and withdrawing ourselves from that society. It's all part of this self-centered, projected activity of every human being in the world. Whether he lives in the most smallest hamlet, village, or in the great cities of the world. We have made this mess. And we are asking, as what we are now, what is the future of us now? And has the future, that is tomorrow, and the 1,000 million tomorrows, is there security in that? We hope. And in that hope, we try to find some kind of security in hope. Hope implies the future. So, as we were pointing out yesterday, we should understand this very seriously, because it may totally bring about a psychic revolution. We may look at the world and ourselves totally differently if we understand the nature of time. Time is not only to cover a distance from one point to another. Time is necessary to learn a language, to learn a skill, to build a house, to acquire a skill, to drive a car, and so on. Time is necessary. But is time, that is, movement of becoming. You understand? You understand? Are we together in all this? Or are you getting mesmerized? Please, the person is not important at all. The speaker is not important in any way. But what he says is important. Either we see the truth of it or the falseness of it. The logic, the sanity, the reason of it. That's what matters, not the personality cult. The speaker is merely a telephone. And a speaker means it. It's not just a word. And so, we are trying to understand whether there is security in time. That is, we are the past. There is no question about it. And that past is operating, modifying itself in the present. The present, if there is no fundamental change, not some superficial scratching, but fundamental change, the future is what we are now. So all time, the past, the future, the present is in the now. Right? And that if we can really capture the significance of this, then we begin to see the implication of what it means to change. You know? I wish I could discuss this matter with somebody who is following this intimate, closely, not just listening casually, because it's really very important, because it really will alter the whole way of looking at life. If you accept that there is no tomorrow, how do you look at the world? How do you look at yourself? How do you consider God? How do you consider becoming something? You understand? Becoming something implies time. And if you see all time is contained in the now, you understand? Then what is becoming? Is there psychological becoming at all? I wonder if you follow this. And what does then, if you understand this, relationship mean? To be related to somebody in which there is no time, no becoming. Do you understand? Are we following this little bit? Or would you like to see the video? Because these are really important questions, fundamental questions one must ask oneself. What is it? What does it mean to change if there is no tomorrow? Because tomorrow is now. And if change implies gradualness, then you admit time. And that time, the future, is now. So is it possible to change instantly, not allowing time to interfere at all? So can the brain, which has been accustomed to gradualness, and gradually become good, gradually end violence, gradually get over my idiocy, and so on. The brain is accustomed to that. We are educated that way. You will gradually learn how to write properly. It is school. How to learn mathematics gradually take 2 years. And you have to take several years to become a doctor. But we have extended that same feeling, that same movement into the whole psychological world. So we say, I'll gradually become something, gradually learn how to meditate. Good God, you understand? Gradually learn how to live peacefully. Which all that implies our conditioning to the concept of becoming. And if all time is in the now, which is a fact, it's a statement of a fact. That statement may not be true. So you have to find out for yourself if that statement is a fact or not. Not merely influenced or coerced or encouraged by the speaker. Therefore one must have doubt, question. There must be skepticism to say, oh, is it true? So that your own brain is active. You yourself see things as they are. As we were saying, if all time, the past, the present and the future, is contained in the now, what is our relationship to each other? That relationship with man and woman who are in conflict, each wanting to fulfill, each helping the other to sustain themselves. If one is weak, it will depend on somebody strong, and so on. That's the present relationship of conflict. And can that conflict end instantly, not gradually? You understand me? And then what is action? Action is according to a memory conditioned by the past or action of tomorrow. I will do this. I will try to understand. I'll try to listen to what you are saying. So what is action when there is no, when all time is now? You understand the question? Wonderful. One is greedy, or one is violent. Violence has many aspects. Conformity, imitation, adaptation, adjustment, or physical gestures and action physically, hitting somebody and so on, throwing a bomb. Those are all based on concepts, ideas, memories, ideals, and so on. So, if there is no tomorrow, you understand? What then is action?
The final extract in this episode is from the fourth talk in New York 1966 and is titled Freedom from Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow.
To understand the question of time is very important. I'm using the word understand in the sense come directly into contact with some things which the mind through thought cannot possibly comprehend. You cannot comprehend love through words, through ideas, through your experiences which you had. So, to go into this question of time, is important because to understand death, you must understand time. And to understand death and time is to understand what love is. And without understanding these three things, fundamental issues of life, life has very little meaning. You may go to the office, have plenty of money and, all that stuff. It has very little meaning, actually. And hence, when life loses its deep significance, then you are satisfied with superficial activity which leads to more confusion, to more sorrow. And that's what's actually taking place in the world. Not only in this country, but the whole Europe and India and so on. So these questions, as a human being, must be solved. Because a human being is part of society. Human being is not separate from society. He's part of it. He's conditioned by society, which he has created. And to create a new society or a new community, the fundamental issues of life must be solved. When we are talking about time, we do not mean the chronological time by the watch. That time exists, must exist. If you want to catch a bus, if you want to catch a train and so on, or an appointment, you must have the time tomorrow. But is there a tomorrow psychologically, which is the time of the mind? Is there psychologically tomorrow, actually? Or the tomorrow is created by thought? Because thought sees the impossibility of change directly, immediately, and invents this process of gradualness. That is, I see for myself, as a human being, it's terribly important to bring about a radical revolution in my way of life, thinking, feeling, in my action. And I say to myself, I'll take time over it. Time being, what I am today, I will be different tomorrow, or in a month's time, and so on and so on. That is the time we're talking about. The psychological structure of time, of tomorrow, or the future, and in that time we live. It is. Time is the past, the present, and the future. Not by the watch. I was yesterday. Yesterday operates through today, creates the future. That's a fairly simple thing. I have had an experience a year ago that has left an imprint on my mind, and the present I translate according to that experience, knowledge, tradition, conditioning, and I create the tomorrow. So I'm caught in this circle. This is what we call living, what we call time. Please, I hope you're observing your own minds and not listening merely to the speaker. And in this process of time, memory is very important. Memory of a happy childhood, memory of some deep experience, memory of a pleasure which I've stored up, which I want to repeat it tomorrow. And the repetition of that pleasure tomorrow is continued through thought. So, thought is time. Because if I didn't think psychologically of tomorrow, there is no tomorrow. Please, it is not oversimplification to understand something very complex that needs deep examination and penetration. You must begin very, very simply. And it is the first step that matters, not the last step. So, thought, which is you, with all its memories, conditioning, ideas, hopes, despair, the utter loneliness of existence. All that is this time. The brain is the result of time, chronologically. 2 million years and more. It has its own reactions of greed, envy, ambition, jealousy, anxiety. And to understand a timeless state, when time has come to a stop, one must inquire whether the mind can be free totally of all experience, which is of time. All right, can I go on? I hope I'm not making it complicated, am I? Explanations are complicated, but not the actual fact. And if one is aware, however a little bit attentive, one sees this process. Life is a continuous process of challenge and response. And every response is conditioned by its past responses, memories. And every challenge is new. Otherwise, it's not a challenge. And we're always responding from the past. Except on rare occasions which we needn't discuss here. They're so rare, there doesn't much matter. And into this brain, every challenge and response as experience is being accumulated. And from that accumulation we act, we think, we feel, we function psychologically, inwardly, inside the skin as it were. And that is time. So one asks oneself whether it is possible to live so completely that there is neither tomorrow, yesterday or today or tomorrow. And that to understand that and live it, not theoretically but actually, one must examine the structure of memory, of thought. And one has to ask oneself, what is thinking at all? What is thinking? And why should we think? I know it's the habit to think, to reason, to judge, to choose. To judge, to choose, to think at a mechanical level is absolutely necessary. Otherwise we couldn't function. So, is it possible to live from day to day freed from the psychological time as yesterday, today and tomorrow, which doesn't mean that you live in the moment. That's one of our absurd fallacies. That what matters is to live now. The now is the result of yesterday. What you have thought, what you have felt, your memories, your anxieties, hopes, fears, all that have been stored up, unless one understands that and dissipates it, you can't live in the now. Therefore, there is no such thing as the now. But the now, for life is a movement, endless movement. Which movement we have divided psychologically as yesterday, today and tomorrow. And hence we have invented the gradual process of achievement. of freeing oneself. It's like a man who smokes or drinks. He'll give it up gradually. He'll take time over it. It's like a man who is violent and has the ideal of non-violence. He's pursuing non-violence and sowing seeds of violence in the meantime. That's what we are doing, which is called evolution. I'm not a fundamentalist, please. So, the mind, which has the mind, the brain, the whole structure, can only understand a state of mind which has no time at all, only when we have understood for ourselves the nature of memory and thought. Then we can begin to understand the nature of death. Because death now is something in the distance, over there. We turn our back on it, we run away from it, we have theories about it, we rationalize it, or we have hopes beyond it, which is in Asia, in India, they believe in reincarnation. And that's a hope, which doesn't mean that one has understood the whole beauty of death. I'm not being sentimental. The speaker is not being sentimental about death when he uses the word beauty. The issue involved in a future life is that there is a permanent entity. Permanent entity as the soul, as something which continues. And they have given various names to that in the East and in the West, but in essence it is the same thing, something permanent, something that has a continuity. And there is the death of the physical, the organism, wearing itself out through strain, stresses, through various misuses, drugs, overindulgence of everything. So the mechanism gradually wears out, dies. That's an obvious fact. But hope comes in and says, there is a continuity. It is the end of everything. I have lived, struggled, accumulated, learned, developed a character. I don't know why one develops a character, which is neither here nor there. Character is merely a resistance. And that permanent entity will continue till it becomes perfect, whatever that may mean. So, is there a permanent entity at all? I know the believers, but the believers are not the speakers of truth. They are merely dogmatists, theologians, or people who are full of fanciful hope. So, if you examine yourself to find out if there is a thing that's permanent, obviously there is nothing permanent, both outwardly and inwardly. Though each one of us craves for security outwardly, we are denying it by our nationalities, by wars. They are denying security, total physical security in Vietnam, though each of them crave for security. And is there such thing as permanent security, except an idea about it? If there is not, and there is no such thing as there is, then what is it that continues? Memory? Experiences which are dead ashes of things that have been? And if you do, as so many people believe in reincarnation in different forms, as a resurrection, all the rest of it, if you do, then it matters tremendously how you live today. What you believe today, how you act, everything matters immensely what you do now. Because next life you're going to pay for it. So it's just an avoidance of the real fact of what death is. There is the death of the physical organism. And to find out what death is beyond that, can the whole psyche, with all the tendencies, pleasures, idiosyncrasies, memories, experiences die each day completely, without argument, without restraint, die? Have you ever tried to die to a pleasure? Something that you want tremendously, that gives you great satisfaction, delight, without any reason, without any motive, without any argument, to die to it. If you can, you'll know what death means. To empty that mind totally of everything of the past. And it can be done, it should be. That's the only way to live. After all, love is that, isn't it? Love is not thought. Love is not desire, pleasure. pleasure, desire, continues through thought. And when thought thinks about a particular pleasure, sexual or otherwise, then it ceases to be love. It's an appetite. An appetite has its own place. But we unfortunately talk a great deal about love. The churches, the books, the cinemas. If one loved, there'd be no war. You would educate your children entirely differently. Not merely condition them to certain technological knowledge. Then the whole world won't be mad about this thing called sex, as though they've discovered something totally new. And we only know love as a sexual appetite, with its lusts and demands and frustrations and despairs, jealousies, and all the travail of human mind in what is called love. So love has nothing whatsoever to do with the formula of thought. And that comes into being only when memory as thought, with all its demands and pleasures, comes to an end psychologically. Then love is something entirely different. You cannot talk about it. You cannot write everlasting books about it. Love of God and love of man, this division doesn't exist. But to come to that, one must not only be free from fear, but also there must be a time ending. Therefore, understanding life, you can only understand life when you understand death. The thing that we call living is this anxiety, this despair, this sense of guilt, the endless longing, the utter loneliness, boredom. This is what we call living. Constant conflict, a battlefield. The world of business, in our daily existence at home, in the battlefields all over the world, destroying each other. This is what we call living. And actually it is a frightful mess, a deadly affair. And when that so-called living comes to an end, and it can only come to an end when one dies to the whole of it, not partial, to certain fragments of it, then one lives. So death and living go together. And for death and life to continue together, there must be dying every day to everything. Then the mind is made fresh, young, innocent. And that innocence cannot come through any drug, through any experience. It must be beyond and above all experience. A light to itself does not need any experience.